Whoa, hold on.
This is something new. The LP
Russell, get off my
step.
screen. I'm gonna call you back. I got you though. I got you. I already get you around all that. Don't trip. I'm gonna call you back in a second. All right, bye. My bad. Don't worry about what I'm doing. I'm doing. Shout out to Russell, but we don't need Russell on the screen because Russell gonna get niggas demonetized. Rich Trapper tapping in TNN Trap News Network. Good news you can use. Get knowledge though. You ain't finna get anybody's college though. Back in this thing, back in this thing. Like cook cracking this thing. Back in this stangerton. Like cook cracking this stangerton. You feel me? You feel me? Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, and make sure you hit that good subscribe button. Make sure y'all tap in with that. Make sure y'all tapped in with that. Make sure y'all are tapped in with that. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. Man, we back in this thing. Back in this thing. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, and hit that good subscribe button for everything we got going on here at TNN Trap News Network. News you can use, knowledge you ain't finna get nobody's college, big dog. Tap in with the tap in and make sure you are in fact tapped in with that good tap in. Rich Trapper tapping in. TNN Trap News Network. 25,000 subscribers gonna give away $100. 15,000 subscribers gonna give away another $100. Make sure you get tapped in and got into that. You feel me? You feel me? And make sure y'all get into Man at the Garden Freestyle and Fairy Tales out now on all streaming platforms. We finna tap in with the Warren Cali. He died from the 40s versus 60s wars. The story of Twin from Rolling 40s. Let's see what's going on here, man. Let's get into it. Let's go.
Back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I'm going to detail the story of Twin from the Rolling 40 Crips. Twin was born Gary Thornton in 1970, just 6 minutes before his twin brother Jerry, which Gary would grow up being called Twin 1 because he was older, and his younger brother was called Twin 2. Both brothers would grow up in South Central and be raised on Van Ness Street in the Rolling 40 Crips turf. Most kids growing up in the streets of South Central were influenced early just by going outside their homes and adapting to their communities, whether they had a two-parent home or an unstable family situation. And Gary and Jerry would be influenced by their neighborhood and their surroundings. That meant becoming a part of the gang in their area, the Rolling 40 Crips. And by the 80s, they were official members making a name for themselves. The 40s and the 80s were a gang building their name up in the streets, from going to war with several blood gangs like the Brams, BPS in the 20s, to gangs like the Hoovers. Not to mention that crack hit the streets of LA in the early 80s, and the money was easy, and it came fast. You had everyone either selling crack or becoming crackheads. The communities that many once knew,
you got everyone either selling crack or becoming crackheads. Is a crazy way to see the scenario.
Were destroyed, and gang wars and drug wars made LA one of the most dangerous places across the country. And Gary and Jerry became drug dealers to support a lifestyle many young men from the streets wanted, and that was to be rich, and many youths took advantage of the booming drug trade. Gary's first robbery was at the age of 12, and his first drug deal was around the same time. He was living a fast life and became a father at the age of 15. But Gary and Jerry weren't just involved in drug dealing. They were willing participants in the activities in the 40s and the wars the 40s had with rivals. And the dangers of the war came close to home. Rivals threw Molotov cocktails into the twins' grandmother's home and shot up her front door.
Throwing Molotov cocktails in somebody's grandma's house is barnacles. Nigga, the grandma house? Boundaries, gentlemen. There has to be boundaries.
So this meant a lot of back and forth shooting would be a constant thing in Gary and his brother's life. They had many attempts on their life, with their names ringing in the streets and them being frontline for their gang. Gary survived several attempts on his life. He once got caught lacking in his hood and had to take cover behind palm trees while he was being shot at, but he was not shot in this incident. Another attempt on his life occurred when he was cruising on Crenshaw. Some blood seen his car and shot his car up, but he didn't get hit. Instead, his brother Jerry was hit in the arm. In the late 90s, Gary was even on police radar for all his dealings in the streets throughout the years. The police seemed determined to put...
It's crazy how in the 90s, LA looks exactly the same as it looks in 2025 as far as the neighborhoods are concerned. The only thing changed is the outfits and the cars.
Them away.
But man, this looks like everything that I ever seen as a kid. Like, it's crazy, bro. Man, it's no place like home.
His criminal record was reckless driving and cocaine possession. But police were trying to build a case on him any way they could, just to take him off the streets. The money that he made in the streets, Gary knew he had to go legit and chill out with the street activity. For a time, him and his brother operated a convenience store down a block from their grandmother's home. Gary even got his GED and took classes at Cal State LA. In his spare time, he offered guidance to young people and became a familiar face at community events. Gary later scored a full-time gig in the mayor's gang reduction and youth development program. When Gary's phone buzzed in the middle of the night, it was usually a notification from the city that someone had been shot. Gary would throw on some clothes and rush to the scene to comfort friends and relatives of the shooting victims and try to calm the situation down. The mayor's office only hired high-status OGs who had pool in their community.
So it seems like this is like the beginning of the grid programs. Like, I don't know if that's exactly what the same thing is, but it seems like that's the beginning. This is like the early stages of the grid program, and it's clearly for gang intervention and gang prevention and all kind of stuff like that. It's not really seemingly like it's telling on anybody. Clearly, it's not telling anybody. It's clearly just gang prevention and betterment for the neighborhood. So I'm not sure where all the other stuff comes from, really.
These were men who lived in the violence of the 80s and 90s when annual homicides topped.
Right, like it seems like he's just trying to overall just better the neighborhood that he was once a part of the destruction of. You feel me? But, you know, whatever.
1,000. By 2018, at the age of 48 with 5 kids, Gary has settled into gang intervening for the city, with a side gig providing security for film shoots, such as John Singleton's Snowfall show. Gary was also a big participant in the Crip Softball League. The league had been a passion for Gary since he brought the 40s in as one of the founding teams in 2016. The league was founded to bring peace and keep good relationships between several of the gangs. Many of the players were middle-aged and no longer active gangbanging, but as OGs, they wanted to set an example for the younger people from their hoods. By this time of
That's a dope thing, and that's a great way to, you know, put understanding into the youth that things can be better and things can be different. You know what I'm saying? I like that. I like what they got going on here, for sure.
2018, the once allies, the Rolling 40 Crips, and the Rolling 60 Crips have been at odds for years, so the 60s for the younger people from their hoods. By this time of 2018, the once allies, the Rolling 40 Crips, and the Rolling 60 Crips have been at odds for years, so the 60s were not in a softball league. On July 1st, 2018, a Rolling 60 Crip arrived at a park that a softball game was being held at. He had no invite. Some of the 40s asked him to leave the park, and the talk grew heated, but the 60 member eventually left. A witness who was later referred to as TM would say her and her friend were seated in a park when a group of 15 to 40 men were in a parking lot yelling at each other. TM said because there were little kids in the park that she decided to call 911. Police later arrived at the park within a few minutes, but they didn't see anything going on, so they decided to leave. Gary later called his fiancée on the phone later that day, and he mentioned an incident at the game. "I'll tell you when I get home," he said. After the game, Gary would go back to his community in the 40s that day to visit his grandma and see several of his friends in the community. He would stop at his grandmother's house first for her birthday, then a friend named TJ's home after that, which was on the 4500 block of Van Ness Street, where several people were hanging out at. Around 7 o'clock that same evening, a man named Kevin arrived at the home of his friend FJ. TJ was FJ's son. Gary's truck was parked in the driveway. Kevin was talking with Gary and TJ, who were standing close together on the passenger side of Gary's truck. Kevin was then startled by the sound of multiple gunshots. He ran towards FJ's front door, and Kevin was hit multiple times by multiple bullets in his stomach and his neck. From the inside of the house, FJ heard multiple shots and immediately opened the door to see what was going on. He saw 2 men in the street about 4 to 5 feet apart and shooting at Gary's truck, as Gary stood by the passenger side of the truck. After the shooting stopped, FJ held Kevin inside his home, while TJ called the police. Kevin eventually underwent multiple surgeries to repair the damage from the multiple gunshot wounds. Kevin later told the police...
That's really sad, man. He was out there kind of like just kicking. I mean, and I get it. You know, everybody gets what they get. And, you know, when you're in the streets, blah, blah. I get it. But I hated to see this one, man. The 60s and the 40s, I really hated to see that one, man. That one hurt my heart. That one hurt my heart, man. Because if you know, the 60s and the 40s had a really tight-knit community, a real tight-knit relationship. You know, it was... just heartbreaking, man. You don't want to see brothers become enemies, homies become enemies, niggas that grew up with each other, moms as friends, moms work together and all kind of stuff like that. And now you niggas want to go at each other when y'all was just all playing basketball at Van Ness Park with the afro, with one hand on your hip, holding the basketball like this, big cheesy. If you know, you know. You know. If you didn't play basketball in LA in the early 90s, in the late 90s, early 2000s, you don't know about that. But don't worry about it. I digress. Mid 90s, early 2000s. Don't worry about it. All I'm saying is this, man. I'm glad that war has since ended, but it's so sad to see how many people were affected by, and God bless the souls and the memories of everybody affected by this super tragic war, man. One of LA's worst ones.
He did not see the driver or the shooters because he was not facing towards the street. TJ denied seeing what happened, but he did call the police. Witnesses would see 2 males jump out of a black car and start shooting at the truck. The witnesses even provided video footage of the shooting from their surveillance cameras, which were later played in court. When police arrived at the scene, they saw that Gary was on the ground next to the passenger side of his truck. He appeared to be dead from the gunshot wounds, which he later died from. Video footage from security cameras and nearby traffic cameras showed the shooters arrive on Van Ness Avenue in a black car with a white Uber sticker on the window and also a Nevada license plate. Detectives discovered the car was a rental car. The agency that owned the car reported it had not been returned and considered it stolen. The police went to a rolling 60 crib named Brandon's home looking for the black car. When they arrived, they did not see the car, but it was a red Kia parked in front and a female in the driver's seat. A male was also in the passenger seat, but the police could not identify who the individual was. Shortly after, the police drove past a duplex on West 59th Street. The duplex was a known hangout for the rolling 60s. When the police drove past the duplex, they saw the same red Kia parked in front that they seen at Brandon's house less than an hour before. The same female was in the driver's seat, and they also seen the same male. The red Kia started to drive off. The police were driving in the opposite direction, so they had to turn around and follow the Kia. By the time they caught up with the red Kia, the male passenger was no longer in the car. When the driver failed to signal before turning, the police decided to pull the car over.
They was going to pull you over regardless. You was going to get pulled over regardless. That signal was not the reason why you got pulled over. They was following you and it was on your hat. That's the reason why you got pulled over. You was going to get pulled over regardless.
During the traffic stop, they saw a white Uber sticker on the floorboard of the car and also a key fob in the back seat. The key fob was later identified as the key for the black car. That same day, the police located the black car parked on West 59th Street near the duplex. Video footage from security and traffic cameras, analysis of cell phones, cell phone tower records, and also GPS tracking tracked Brandon the whole time because he was on ankle monitor. That showed all his movement from the day on July 1st, 2018. On July 1st, in the early afternoon, Brandon drove the black car to a car wash where he met with one of the accomplices in the shooting, being Chico. Chico was wearing distinctive red pants with a white stripe down the side. They hung out together at the car wash for about an hour before Brandon drove home. Meanwhile, Chico and the other accomplice from 60s named Dejan went to a mall. The video footage recovered from the mall showed them in clothing that was consistent with the clothing worn by the shooters depicted in the video footage of the shooting that day. Around 5 p.m., the 60s went to get gas at a gas station. They then drove to Peck Park, where the Rolling 40s had a softball game. They were in the parking lot for around 10 minutes before they left and went to a liquor store. They eventually went to the Rolling 60s hood on West 59th Street and was there around 6:20 p.m. Brandon stayed there until around 7:15 p.m., and cell phone records showed that Chico and Dejan were with him the whole time. GPS records showed
They just got the whole woo-wop. Goodness gracious.
Brandon and his crew left and traveled into the Rolling 40s territory, arriving at FJ's house on Van Ness just before 7:30 p.m. Video footage shows the black car driving past FJ's home, circling around the block, then returning and stopped in front of FJ's home. Two individuals jumped out the car wearing hoodies over their heads and wearing the same clothes that Chico and Dejan had on at the mall. The camera view showed that both individuals had their arms outstretched in the shooting position. After the shooters ran back to the car and jumped in, the car sped off. Brandon's GPS monitor showed that he traveled back to the Rolling 60s turf. This all led to all three men being arrested, with several witnesses, camera footage, cell phone records, and Brandon being on ankle monitor. This was an easy arrest for the police. Gary's funeral drew an unlikely crowd, but one that reflected his work as a peacemaker. Gang members from all over the city, including enemies of the 40s, came out, like Bloods and Hoovers, as well as a representative from the mayor's office, but one that reflected his work as a peacemaker. Gang members from all over the city, including enemies of the 40s, came out, like Bloods and Hoovers, as well as a representative from the mayor's office. They all paid respect to him, and that was a testament to the person he was.
That's a huge testament to the person that he was. And I want to say again, God bless that soul. God bless that family. God bless anybody hurt by this situation. Because we're not here to promote any type of violence. We're not here to promote any type of, disparagement against families or anything like that. And it's beautiful to see how much respect a person can have when you have people who come from just all walks of life and all parts of the community that, normally wouldn't even associate with each other, can all come together for this and be like, we can all agree that this is something that we need to, take a second to look back on, you know what I'm saying? So that's a big thing.
At court, Brandon would tell his side of the story. He said he was cruising past the house on Van Ness where he recognized Gary standing in the driveway. But Brandon insisted they was there to buy codeine from a Rolling 40 crib and not to avenge the park incident. Brandon said as they pulled up, a tall man with glasses approached the car, and he even tried to shoot them, but his gun jammed. Brandon said he didn't know his two friends were armed when they got out the car and began spraying bullets. But that notion was later dismissed. Gary's brother Jerry was at all the court proceedings the whole time. He even wore a shirt celebrating his brother, saying two of a kind. Brandon had already had 2 strikes, and in 2022, Brandon received 82
you out of here, bro. You already got 2 strikes, you're done.
years to life. Dejan pleaded to no contest to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 15 years. And Chico was a minor at the time of the shooting, and he received juvenile life. A person who worked with Gary would say his death is tragic, but his story is a story of redemption. He managed to turn his life around in ways that few people can, Even those with many resources and privileges can't do what he did. Through his strength and perseverance, he saved himself, then he dedicated his life to saving others.
Coming out the house, you know, I had to like lacing my shoes and putting a belt on. I had to put a gun on me. That was way of life. See, when you get older, you kind of want to, you know, be able to address if it's a problem, talk it out instead of fighting and shooting it out. You know, that always been my wisdom. You know, and because I always felt like once you was my brother, you shouldn't turn to an enemy. But some things turned and curveball that.
This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
All right, man, we up out here to the next one. Y'all know the deal. And it's red dots to the left. Y'all know the rest, and it's free. Avenue Angel. Until he's free, we are gone.